going on there? Cryptoverse here with Overtime. Late in the day again here on the West Coast in Los Angeles. Thanks for joining me in my degenerative pursuit of generative art. It's just a fast-moving time. There's just so much to cover, like every day. I've kind of made a decision to really just focus in on. There's a lot of rug pulls lately, and so I just want to focus in on good projects of quality. Even if that is, revisiting, Vogu or Animetas and really sort of refining what it in those projects I like. Junkyard Dogs, dropped, and they did a sort of it was interesting. They did like a mini drop, like 1 minute, sold out of 1,800, and then they're going to go after 6,200, and they're minting, I think, in about 12 hours or so from this stream. So. It seems like a fun project. It was a nice tease. I will say that their floor price sort of dropped. I don't think it was meeting some sort of people's expectations in terms of its sales, and it's a bit of an interesting ploy, right? So they did 1,200. If you only have 1,200 as a supply, you would expect a lot of people to try and buy. With that limited quantity, but maybe people knew and they were waiting for further mints. So it wasn't, I think, a successful experiment. I don't know. Maybe I'll sit more in their discords and sort of ask their creators. Even that's the great thing about these telegrams and discords is you can reach out directly through the moderators, or even I had a really nice conversation with the head of Vogu on Traxi about his love of music and integrating music into NFTs and how I thought that FLUF is doing a really interesting job of that. And so FLUF dropped to a huge I feel like almost out of nowhere in a sense, because not too many people were covering them, but when I saw what was going on with their technology and how they were incorporating music into NFT along with the animation. So you have Junkyard Dogs who may have tried to push their limited 1,800 drop to maybe be amongst the first, to mint fully PFP generative arts that were animated, in these avatar projects. And so you have them with the movement. I think it brings a lot of personality. I think they're funny. Honestly, I'll try and pick one up when I can. And then you look at, sort of the rabbits. And so let's take a look at how fluffers, no disparaging remarks, it's the advanced of art blocks, sorry, space. So, taking a look at the market of fluff, it shot up like out of nowhere really, and it was hitting like 1 ETH-ish, up here as an average price. It started to normalize a bit, very quickly. So in terms of a floor, it really dropped. And so I show Space Poggers as an example of what's going on with that market, contrary to this that just dropped, Fluff World that has dropped. But it's cool. You look at these guys, I think the movements are cool. What I really like is the idea of the interchange. I'm just can't hear the music thing. The interchange between music, you can change out backgrounds. That's a really interesting play for NFTs, because then perhaps you can upgrade rarities, based upon rarities. Oh man, it'd be really great to have my pirate-looking dude on a pirate ship, or even a better spaceship, because he kind of looks like a seafaring pirate. That's in space. And so look at that volume. That's pretty massive for 3 days. And so I think it really, the imagination of the imaginative artwork and the movement and the music, I think created a bit of a buzz. And good for them. They fit all this into that 30 megabyte container that is an NFT. You try and cram in as much media as you can and as much value as you can within that container. And I think they've really done a great job of exploiting that part of it, because a lot of the avatar projects currently are just JPEGs. And as we incorporate more interplay more animation, and create more value in terms of its ability to swap, I think is such a cool idea. Because you can change the background music of your avatar. And for certain situations that might be a great place in an environment and in a metaverse. And so here I just kind of played with contrasting the market with Space Poggers, because Space Poggers is still in that really interesting buy phase of, again, no financial advice. Check out this 200 ETH1. It's a bit mental, and so. But this is what it is. It's a gamble. You have no idea what you're going to get on the reveal. And it could be super rare, or it could be completely common. And it's kind of like wax packs, if you were into baseball cards, or Garbage Pail Kids. When you were a kid, there's these small, but to this, it's 0.24. I mean, that's still $600 for a pack, for a shot, in a sense. But look how that trend is going higher. So even though it was a bit of a disappointment for their community to say, oh gosh, it's going to be a week, it's created interest, because I think there's a lot of people who are interested in participating in that gambling aspect, because they missed out on the mint, because the mints right now are so just fervent, and you have people who are going to be there who are just going to buy the max, and so they might have 20 in their pocket, and they're looking to unload to pay for their initial investment, as well as maybe some of them might be waiting it out. And that's why it's a bit dangerous when you see sort of those metrics of how many holders you have versus how many if somebody's sitting on 20, that's a risk for the market, because somebody could dump, and a couple of people could just dump and want to move on because they don't see the returns that they want to see. And so I wanted to touch on the MetaKey, because they made an announcement with Vogu that they're going to be incorporating their key into the NFT as access to Sandbox and Decentraland. And so what that sparked in my mind was, we're talking about equivalents here of movie. Filmmaker, imagine your NFT drop is Sundance or a film festival. You go and you make your thing, you drop it, it's really well received, and now I feel like MetaKey and even they've placed themselves into a really perfect position to be distributors, because on the other end of that you have Decentraland, you have these worlds, these metaverses, soon Facebook, that are waiting for the eyeballs, because that's where the aggregators for the advertising are going to be. They're going to be sitting there making the deals with the big brands to say, hey, we're going to bring you, this many in this particular demographic that are crazy enough to spend $600 to gamble on a space pog. You want that market. Who the hell doesn't, as an advertiser? And so, they're going to be looking to sell you, as they've been doing for so long, and they're just finding different ways of doing it. Now with blockchain's technology, sadly, we know for more clarity, I think, in how we see that happening, and hopefully in this iteration, hopefully we're able to recoup more for our own data. I think Andrew Yang went on this very great presidential platform on the fact that if we were to take that money that companies are making off of our own data, we could be a very prosperous nation instead of just it being packed into a handful of extremely rich people. And so because the laws are just they're not able to keep up. That's what my next movie's about, actually. So with that, you have a new paradigm where you have MetaKey. I also feel that there's a lot of coins right now, like Theta in the space, or that are the new distributors, are looking to be the new distributors, because they may be looking to be the endpoint sort of landing as well as the distributor and the exhibitor, the theaters, if you will. And so they want to be able to host, and they're trying to find themselves as the distributor to bring in people, bring in audiences. And so in this paradigm of, okay, we are, in this sense, creators, we've gone to this film festival with this great film, great buzz. Now, the people who want to show distributors or bring audiences to distributors or bring audiences to advertisers, they need somebody in between. And I think this is, anytime you're looking at an industry, you're looking at, the picks and the shovels, who's selling the picks and the shovels. And I think that MetaKey potentially could be one of those that are sort of in between. They've worked out how to be, a singular NFT token that allows access to multiple platforms, including Decentraland. That's huge. Sandbox. And so when you have one, it's as if, they can distribute to AMC theaters or just any. I'm like, when's the last time I've been to a theater? My gosh, I can't even think of any names. I was thinking Pacific Theaters, but I think they closed most of their locations. And so, in that sense, let's talk about maybe HBO or maybe even better, a Hulu or a Amazon platform where they have like subscription, they have eyeballs that need the content. I guess that sort of is a different paradigm, isn't it? But in this idea of just empty, not solely empty world like the Decentraland, because there's already an existing thing, but bringing new audiences to that so that they can make more money. I think that's the fair equivalent, to a theatrical experience. To sell the popcorn, to sell the drinks, you need audiences, and that's where those revenues come from for them. So they pay big money for content, and I think that MetaKey is in a great place to be the picks and the shovels in between. And because if you're an NFT creator, it's just as a creator, we love the process. We don't want to sit and I mean, if you guys have ever done a GoFundMe or something like that, you do all the promises of the things and it's like, I love rewarding the people, but it's just like, it takes time to get through all the rewards that you send people, and it's time away from the creative process. And I think that sometimes it's hard for creatives to jump into the marketing game and access that, and that's why we need partners. And I think that when you have something, I think this is great connection for Vogu to make, because those guys are creatives. They're hiring based upon who they think can add value to their current platform, and they've already released the thing, so it's like, okay, what can we do with this to add value? And potentially, I don't know how much money they make on this in terms of the connection. Making they went with a formal announcement that hey, we're going to be working with MetaKey. Well, what is MetaKey? Well, it's a token that can work across these platforms, multiple platforms. So with my Vogu, I can get maybe a Vogu in the sandbox, and then he can have the avatar helmet that you saw on my my landing page here on these live streams. And so there's I think MetaKey is finding itself. They did a couple releases trying to create limited editions, and I think that's them experimenting. I think that they find themselves in a very interesting place, because now, if successful, if they can prove success with somebody like Vogu, huge sales already. Look at their roadmap, and right now it's physical collectibles and content. Probably drops. Decentraland wearables. This is sort of the norm, and then essentially everyone wants to move to Metaverse headquarters. So you have a DCL, Decentraland headquarters, a hangout, an area for your even something as small as your quote unquote gang or your subsection of your NFT world to go hang out and to congregate. Because I tell you, like the groups that that I'm in, when it comes to these platforms are very. They're doing well if they're gambling with $600 to check out NFTs or collecting a few Vogus that are in a specific category, especially when they are rarities, we're talking 2-3 ETH per, and there's many people in our chats that have several. And so this is a group that has cash, that has, well, I guess maybe not fiat cash, but they have done well enough in cryptocurrency that they're looking for stores of value. They're looking for places that maybe they can just flex because they've done just so gosh darn well. Everybody has in the past 2-3 weeks with Ethereum. You're double. I was just buying Ethereum at 1,600, and so it's been a nice ride in terms of what that relates to in terms of fiat money. And so now it's like, well, can I make 3x, 10x on that after maybe Ethereum finds some stabilization, but in terms of whatever price it lands in, because of the collectability of the NFT, how much money can you make? There's a lot, as you guys have been following for the last week or so. Things are just doubling and tripling right off the bat. It's such a hot time right now in the NFT space, and so we'll talk about that. There's doubling and tripling, and then there's the next thing I wanted to talk about, which was art blocks, which you saw a bit of. And so art blocks, it's something that's an interesting project because art blocks is kind of like a gallery. They have their own sort of a gallery that exists on OpenSeas that has multiple artists going through there. That keeps art blocks always on the top 10 or top 20 of OpenSeas, and so it's hard to miss them, honestly, if you're just going through OpenSeas. And maybe I can move myself. Oh look, art blocks, CryptoPunks. Art blocks is above CryptoPunks. Oh, interesting. Or maybe I just have to check. That's why. But usually it's CryptoPunks, Bored Apes. Maybe it's but FLUF World. Look at that. Coming in terms of just popularity and volume. You have art blocks consistently there because of the multiple artists. Now, what these artists are doing are taking what it was supposedly back in March or August. So back in March or so, you would go and you would do a gallery showing, and you would say, what, I want something for the people who can't afford the $250,000 piece, and you would incorporate something into. And again, this art blocks based in Texas, very, very smart move to create collectibles based upon an artist collection that's coming out, but by tying it into blockchain in a very unique way. I think you may have heard of a couple of these projects, but you can certainly just do the thing. But like pigments, we'll go over. You can incorporate it by designing. It sounds a bit weird. Oh gosh, let's talk about the chrome squiggle, which you could have bought the chrome squiggle. You could have bought these at $250, and I'm not kidding. In March, I remember these because it just seemed like, oh well, that's a nice way for a collector who might not be able to afford the big piece. Again, as we're talking, this is what they were meant to be, to be able to collect this artist in this space. And so, ostensibly, what art blocks does is tie those into an algorithm. Their release platform is different, and I'm still catching up with it myself because of just this huge renewed interest, with some of these amazingly high sales and such fervor from the fine arts crowd, because this is fine art expressed in blockchain, and that's very exciting. And so you have essentially they come up with the algorithm first, and they say, hey, this artist is going to be releasing, on this date. They pre-sell it, I believe, so you don't know what you're going to get fully. And again, getting that gambling sort of sense. And I think you probably have to be whitelisted, and it's a bit more of a gallery's approach. And so again, they're taking that traditional model of a gallery. This was supposed to be, oh hey, this is additional to the the big physical pieces that we're going to sell for these artists. They took those and said, okay, now it's going to be an algorithm. The art is going to be tied to an algorithm that is based upon something in the Ethereum blockchain. You can just come up with a bunch of different patterns and tie things into colors or the patterns themselves in vectors, by way of just interpreting data. And so by doing this process within the style of the artist, you create a whole new subset of art. And it's within the realm of high art because it's things that are traditionally sold at galleries. And so these side collectibles, I don't think anything that this person is doing is selling for 68 ETH. I may be completely wrong, but to say that at least their last was at 9 ETH, that's pretty massive and pretty huge in terms of a collectible that you could have bought again for $235, $240. I remember this specifically, this subset, because I liked the squiggles were just it seemed like a nice sort of quick thing. I didn't know it was developed relative to the algorithms of blockchain. Again, that sounds like BS, honestly. From the art block standpoint of looking at this, months ago, you were just kind of like, what's this? Oh, some fine artists are trying to sell things. Not super established fine artists, but fairly well established. I think the marketplace obviously started in Texas. You can see sort of this algorithm has a coloration twist involved, and it could just be randomly going through the RGB cycle, but or not so randomly going through the RGB cycle, but adding this level of incorporation and movement. I think maybe even talking it up to a sense. When I say algorithms, it does sound a bit more complex than it potentially is. Just looking at sort of random data and incorporating it into your style. But you can frame that into a high art way and create original pieces. And so, like this piece here, obviously going last sold at 4 a couple days ago. Just kind of quickly, it talks about like you can experience this, run endlessly, infinite loop. They don't have music yet, by the way. And so this is the thing. So you have, let me get out of the way of this piece. And so you have, just the movement. And so Pigments has been doing incredibly well. It has like this very ethereal movement, and it's got a high art, feel to it because of its color, its intricacy, mood. I think they're taking a lot of great traditional art aspects into the space. And why would you pay so much freaking money for this? Who are you going to show it to? This is where Metaverse ties in. If you haven't experienced Decentraland, if you haven't experienced some of these hangouts in some of these places where you can flex, it's the reason. It's kind of almost the whole reason why, honestly. Because if you have a pigment and it's doing this weird thing, there are emulators that you program into your space, and your space in Decentraland, the walls of it, in a sense, you could even walk into it, creating I'm talking tripping balls stuff here. You can walk into this orb and be in your work. So something like Pigments is kind of awesome in that. I haven't experienced Pigments specifically, but you can do this with any NFT. It's just taking that visual output and putting it into an environment. So I don't know if you've seen like commercials for like the Van Gogh experience. It's like putting the Van Gogh into an experience that you and your friends and whoever you want to bring over can walk into this space and experience the art in a very different way. It's a very super, obviously visceral and unique way. And what better social activity, honestly, in these worlds, in Decentraland, and I think Sandbox is gonna be a bit more gamified, and that's why the addition of Vogu and Sandbox sounds super cool, because then you can develop games. And so in that picks and shovels world, we have all these things that are eventually trying to get to display and exhibition in the metaverse. And in the metaverse is sort of the between part, is where the picks and the shovels currently are. And so I think it's an exciting time. Please like, subscribe if this information is helping you understand this stuff a little better. I hope to every day and share with you guys as much as I can. You can tell my light is changing all throughout these shoots. Like some lights have to go out on shoots, and I don't get a chance to utilize all my lights all the time. But yeah, please like and subscribe, and yeah, I'll just keep bringing more as sort of this comes available, because it's starting to get very clear here, and where we place ourselves as creators, within this this new paradigm, I think is very important and exciting. And so I'd love to hear about your guys' projects